Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Now is not the time to travel.
A warning against traveling outside the country as the Omicron variant spreads. Also,
the pace of repair has been absolutely staggering.
The flood-damaged Coquihalla now expected to open ahead of schedule, but there are some caveats. And BC sets a new record for number of homes sold in a year.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. A strong warning from the Canadian government today, once again advising people not to leave the country. With the spread of the Omicron variant ramping up globally, the government says it's concerned Canadians could be left sick or stranded. As the CBC's Michelle Gassoub reports, the timing just before the holidays has airlines and travelers wondering what to do.
If today's announcement gave you a sense of déjà vu,
To those who were planning to travel, I say very clearly, now is not the time to travel.
it's because we've been here before. Another variant, another warning to Canadians not to travel abroad for non-essential reasons.
The rapid spread of the Omicron variant on a global scale makes us fear the worst for Canadians that may think of traveling. Traveling Canadians could contract the virus or get stranded abroad.
The international departures terminal at YVR today filled with more airport employees than travelers. This Air China crew not taking any chances, though not everyone is canceling their plans.
We've taken every measurement, every precaution. We're fully vaccinated. We safe distance. We follow all the protocols, and so whatever happens, we deal with it when it happens.
We've had these bookings in particular set for many, many weeks, so we'll continue with planning with our schedules, stay as safe as we are, keep our distance, and then hopefully everything will be sorted.
What's not sorted, what kind of measures those Canadians will face when they fly home, though the federal government says it's ramping up its capacity to rapidly test. Here in BC, health officials urging people to be cautious, even if they don't plan on leaving Canada.
I know that many people have been hoping to get a break away from British Columbia at this time of year. It's also important, and I think critical, really, to put your health, the health of the community first. I'd also note that people have to, I think, exercise the same caution in traveling across Canada.
After 21 months of caution, a last-minute change of plans right before the holidays will be a hard sell for some.
Some people need a break, and getting a break is essential. It's just another punch in the match, right? It's just another kick to what's happening to everybody.
The advisory, which was only lifted in late October, is now back in place for at least 4 weeks, with the federal government hinting to expect more announcements in the days to come. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
There are 584 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours in BC and 7 more deaths. For the first time in quite a while, Vancouver Coastal Health is seeing the highest numbers. The province says the increase there is due to informal social gatherings. Overall hospitalizations, which typically lag behind spikes and dips in new cases, are down by 13% from last Wednesday, when 224 people were in hospital. The number of patients in intensive care is the same as last week at 77, but down 33% from last month when 116 people were in the ICU. Now, BC is hinting at changes in its battle against Omicron. The variant has taken hold and case numbers are rising. Justin McElroy joins us now. And Justin, why are new measures needed?
Well, they're needed, according to Health Minister Adrian Dix, because simply the virus is changing and Omicron has a higher transmissibility than Delta. We're seeing record high case counts in a lot of different jurisdictions right now. And while that hasn't happened yet in British Columbia, take a look at this chart of the rolling average of new cases by day and this quick surge up that we've seen in the last week. It's gone up by about 25%. That's similar to what we've seen at the start of the second, third, and fourth waves. But the difference with Omicron is that that it's much more transmissible, it spreads much quicker, and we still don't know yet what the exact health outcomes for people that get it will be. That we've seen some evidence that it's going to be more mild, but we don't know to the extent, and we don't know whether that will overflow our health system if there's too many cases. And it's why the minister said today that some changes were needed.
You can see that the situation is evolving, and we can't be certain about what the situation will be 2 weeks from now, but it's unlikely that it'll be better than it is today.
So what are we expecting to hear? Well, we should get on Tuesday an update to the province's rapid testing strategy. As well, new public health orders are being considered, particularly when it comes to attendance capacities at large events like concerts or Canucks games. But certainly the province heavily hinting today that some changes will be coming pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely lots of moving pieces here with rapid tests and public health orders. So what isn't changing?
Well, the one thing that the province said that they are confident in its strategy, or at least didn't give any hints that it was going to be changing, is around third doses. Right now, it's a 6 to 8 month gap for most people between their second and third. The province of Ontario today announced that they were going to be fast tracking that. However, Dix said that the province believed in its strategy of 6 to 8 months. But the reason that this is causing some people anxiety is you can see in this chart the difference between second shots 6 months ago in the month of June versus third shots this month so far in the first half of December. And you can see that blue line representing third shots in December going up much more slowly than the red line of second shots in June. So the province says that's going to be picking up in the weeks ahead. More people are going to be getting those texts and emails saying that they're eligible to book. But certainly, given what we're seeing in other parts of the world and uncertainty around Omicron right now, a lot of people hoping that they get that third dose because the science that we have so far shows that provides the level of effectiveness similar to what we've seen with 2 doses with Delta and previous versions of this virus.
Justin McElroy, thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
The man who made a fake call to a care home on the day it recorded Canada's first COVID death has pleaded guilty. Staff at the Lynn Valley Care Home got a call in March of 2020 that made them fear for the safety of the facility's residents. The caller claimed to be a health officer with alarming information about the number of people who had tested positive for the coronavirus overnight. He warned staff at the North Vancouver Centre to stay where they were, and while the entire facility was shut down. The call was eventually revealed to be a hoax, and the caller, Taimur Agtai, has now pleaded guilty to conveying a false message with intent to alarm. He's due back to be sentenced next month. And coming up on the national special edition on COVID and the rapid spread of the Omicron variant here and around the world. Should you change your holiday plans? What's safe, what's not? Adrian Arsenault and Andrew Chang will be joined by health experts to help answer your questions and break down the risks ahead of the holidays. That's at 10 p.m. on CBC TV or streaming on CBC Gem. Well, the Coquihalla Highway linking Metro Vancouver to BC's interior is set to reopen ahead of schedule on Monday. Crews are working around the clock to repair massive damage caused by flooding and landslides. Mayor Bains on what the transportation minister is describing as one of the most remarkable engineering feats in recent memory.
The early reopening of the Coquihalla Highway is a significant development to reconnect BC supply chain. BC Transportation Minister Rob Fleming says temporary repairs will allow the interior highway to be open to commercial trucks and intercity buses.
The Coquihalla will reopen to essential traffic no later than the end of day on Monday, December the 20th. The exact time of day will be determined over the next few days.
Fleming says paving still needs to be completed in challenging conditions. The Coquihalla had been scheduled to open in January, but Fleming says crews have been working tirelessly. It was damaged in more than 20 places and sections completely washed away by the surging Coquihalla River. Fleming also says all traffic will be allowed on Highway 3 after the Coquihalla reopens.
When the Coquihalla does reopen, we will remove the essential travel designation for Highway 3 about 24 hours later. So Coquihalla opening on Monday, time to be confirmed. 24 hours later, Highway 3, the essential travel restrictions will be lifted.
He says people should make sure they have winter tires and be patient due to reduced speed in some areas. The costs of the infrastructure repairs are still unclear, but the federal government is allocating an estimated $5 billion to BC so far. The BC government has promised to build back better so structures are able to handle strong storms caused by climate change.
Assessing the full costs of rebuilding will be an ongoing process, and it will be some time before both estimated and final costs can be determined.
While repairs are moving quickly on the Coquihalla, Highway 1 through the Fraser Canyon is still scheduled to reopen mid-January. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, farms in the Fraser Valley are still trying to figure out how to move forward. 30 are still on evacuation order.
The process of cleaning farms is a difficult one. It's almost a question of where do you start. Everything is covered in a really bad mud right now, and so just being able to have access to clean water to wash away that debris is challenging for these folks.
Many farms are still trying to dispose of the animals they lost because of the flooding. Evaluating the extensive damage to vegetable farms will take some more time. Many of them are still underwater. There could also be a lot of issues trying to replant this spring, and so crops may be lost for some time. Some good news, 48 out of 60 dairy farms are operating again. That means milk production in the province is at 90% now. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff is with us now. And Joe, I know you were hinting at some sun for us tomorrow, but perhaps some crazy temperatures up north. What's that all about?
Yes, extreme cold warnings in effect, Anita, for northeastern sections of the province. So while it's feeling chilly here, it is very cold up north. Let me show you the current temperatures tonight. This is without a wind chill factor, minus 26 right now in through Fort Nelson. And that Arctic air mass in purple that actually extends across the northern prairies, that will sink down across the Peace region tonight. So Fort St. John also getting into those numbers. Wind chills tomorrow morning will feel like minus 42. So frostbite will set in a matter of minutes, hence the extreme cold warnings. Now, we won't get that Arctic air down across the south coast. We've got that swirling low that remains offshore, but giving us the sense that there's a storm not too far off. I don't know if that was just me that felt that today. A few more showers tomorrow morning because of it, but it will sink south, bringing us sunshine for the afternoon. Anita, I think we've got a good-looking Thursday afternoon before we do have to get into a Pacific storm that we'll talk about Friday and Saturday, and might even throw in a snow forecast. We'll see. Not out of the question as we head into the last week before Christmas, and things are getting colder in the long range. So those details ahead.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Police have released surveillance photos of a Vancouver park caretaker taken hours before he was killed. The VPD is hoping these photos will shed light into Justice Daniels' murder. The two surveillance camera images were captured on December 9th. That's the day police believe Daniels was killed. Officers found the 77-year-old's body inside his Tatlow Park residence on the morning of December 10th. He had been looking after the 1.4-hectare park in Kitsilano, where he was well known as a gentle, kind-hearted man. Investigators are also looking to speak with anyone who has video surveillance systems in their homes or businesses within the area of West 5th Avenue and Point Grey Road between Larch and Trutch Streets. Well, restaurant owners say Canada needs to let in more foreign workers to curb the ongoing labor shortage. The BC food and beverage industry is down as many as 40,000 workers. As John Hernandez reports, some businesses are already trying to secure staff for the summer months.
Diana Chan is making the best of an off day. Her poutineery and hot dog shop is usually a hit with hungry skiers, but today it's closed.
We are running short-staffed, as many of my colleagues across the village are. We're running at about half the staff we need to be fully operational. Unfortunately, there's very few nights of late-night poutine in Whistler right now.
Despite ample snow on the hills and more traffic than usual, a number of businesses in Whistler have actually had to scale back hours, all because there's simply not enough people to work.
And as a result of that, it does impact the customer experience when guests come to Whistler, and it also impacts our ability to recover faster from COVID.
And it's not just happening here. Since the onset of the pandemic, the restaurant industry in BC is down by about 40,000 workers. That's about 20%. Industry leaders say the solution is overseas.
And the only way we're going to deal with this crisis that we're in is through skilled foreign workers.
The pandemic has made it more challenging for businesses to bring in foreign workers. Ottawa admits permit processing times have been delayed, leading to a backlog of applicants. It can take more than 9 months for someone to get approved. That's why the industry is calling on the government to pick up the pace.
As we're trying to have this process shortened, if we are able to get the government to move, we could probably shave off about 3 months of waiting around over the almost 9 months to get a worker.
In places like Whistler, there's little hope for reinforcements before ski seasons end, so owners are planning ahead.
But we're looking to the summer to say who can we hire and starting to get their visa applications in now.
With the clock ticking, they hope the province can put some pressure on Ottawa to swiftly move those applications along, so the next tourism season doesn't start short-staffed. John Hernandez, CBC News, Whistler.
More people in British Columbia have been drinking alcohol since the pandemic hit. A study led by the University of Victoria has been tracking alcohol consumption in the past 20 years. It says drinking has come up to 9.32 liters per capita. That's equivalent to a person aged 15 and up consuming 547 cans of 5% beer or 104 bottles of 12% wine in a year. UVic's director of this study hesitates to attribute this spike to COVID-19 and the lockdown per se, but rather to government policy that increased the accessibility of alcohol.
British Columbians had access to alcohol from so many locations with so many methods of delivery or pickup at so many hours of the day.
Later in the show, I'll be speaking with UVic's Director of Research for a little more details on how they measured BC's booze consumption. And another record spike in BC, this time in real estate. Home sales have reached an all-time high in 2021, and there's still 1 month left to be accounted for. The previous record was set in 2016 with more than 112,000 sold that year. But as of the end of November, the number of homes sold zipped past that number, and it's now at nearly 118,000 and counting. What's more is how sales have increased in areas outside of Greater Vancouver. Average home prices in areas like Victoria, Chilliwack, and the Fraser Valley are getting higher. And as you can see, the gap is getting closer to how expensive a home in Greater Vancouver would cost. This is largely in part to how the pandemic has played into where people are choosing to buy.
It's really the long effects of COVID-19 as the pandemic is just ongoing, that it really covers the kind of great dispersion that we see. I think folks kind of reconsider their choices about living, say, in a kind of central urbanized area.
The average price for a BC home overall is just shy of $1 million, up more than 22% from this time of year in 2020. Well, they're fighting to make the NFL postseason, but the Seattle Seahawks are hoping to attract more fans here in BC and perhaps one day play a game here.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
The team says the league has granted it permission to expand marketing and fan outreach in Canada. It wants to connect with the 12 North fan base and host events here next year, focusing mainly on BC and the Prairie provinces. The Seahawks say they will also work with the NFL to look at hosting a regular season game in Canada. The team notes it has 3,300 Canadian season ticket holders. Well, the Vancouver Park Board has bestowed the city with a holiday gift, its words, not ours, in the form of an official sign commemorating the beached barge in the West End. The sign, Barge Chilling Beach, appeared on Sunset Beach this morning. The barge crashed into the seawall after becoming unmoored during the BC storm a month ago. Some Vancouverites are taking a liking to it already.
I mean, it's modern, it's cute.
I love it. Everyone loves it. Look at this.
If we're gonna play with it, we might as well have a little bit of fun with it. So I think the sign is great.
The sign itself is a nod to another well-known park in Vancouver, Dude Chilling Park. The board says the sign will stay up as long as the barge is there. Well, new rules for Ontario as Omicron surges in the province. The provincial response from Toronto next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Now, for the last 4 years at Seaside Elementary in Eastern Passage in Nova Scotia, the grade 4 teachers have done what they call the Kindness Project. Here's Colleen Jones with one student who's paying it forward.
In the Donald's family kitchen, the whiteboard's a reminder. Danny Marie's Kindness Project is front and center.
The first one would be this one.
Her grade 4 class project of doing kind deeds technically is finished, but Danny Marie keeps on coming up with new things to do to make people smile.
Because it makes me happy seeing people smile.
Her list of projects? Well, she's dropped off coffee and donuts to paramedics, the local fire station, the RCMP, the Shearwater Military Police, and then she bought lottery tickets for people and randomly gave them out at the mall. Her latest project she's working on with her mother, Courtney, they're making fairy lights to give away.
Danny Marie's taken it a little bit further, so there was different kindnesses that she could do, and hers was to make people smile. So watching her do that makes me happy that she's growing up to be somebody with a big heart.
All of this giving and kindness started here at Danny Marie's school, Seaside Elementary. Her teacher, Lindsay Sim, assigns kindness for homework. That Lindsay has finished the assignment but keeps adding more to the list?
Always out for a challenge and is super positive in the classroom. Always doing nice things for others. So it didn't surprise me at all, and it really makes us feel very proud of her here at Seaside.
This weekend, Danny Marie has more projects planned. She and her parents will drop sandwiches and drinks at the homeless encampment in Halifax. And today, she made a special trip to the IWK to drop off the fairy lights for anyone who might need a little brightness in their life. Kindness and empathy, a pretty good lesson to learn, and Danny Marie is learning it as a 9-year-old. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Eastern Passage.
Among the federal government's measures to control the surge of Omicron, their notice advising against non-essential travel is putting people in a tricky spot. As Hannah Thibodeau reports, many Canadians are having trouble working out their holiday travel plans.
The holiday rush is already starting at Canada's airports.
It's kind of unpredictable and things, so it's worrisome.
The federal government agrees. The Omicron variant is making things unpredictable. And today said if you have international travel plans, cancel them.
I have the task of confirming that our government is officially advising Canadians to avoid non-essential travel outside Canada. To those who were planning to travel, I say very clearly, now is not the time to travel.
For those heading out now, mixed emotions.
It's a little nerving, kind of scary.
It's a little
It makes me a little nervous, but again, I'm vaccinated and I'll be sure to take safety precautions there and social distance, COVID testing. So I hope it'll be fine.
I'm not uber concerned because we're vaccinated.
Not too worried about it. I think that's why we do our vaccines, right?
But going ahead with a trip and getting sick could land you in a precarious situation.
You could get sick with COVID if you have to go in hospital. Being hospitalized in a foreign country is not a straightforward and simple process. Getting back to Canada after you've been infected is going to be complicated. There can be considerable costs involved.
And warnings from federal health officials that stronger measures could be implemented at any moment, like additional testing and mandatory quarantine to enter the country.
The federal government, being responsible for the international border, is still considering layer on more protection. And I think that there's other measures being under active discussion at this point.
The Prime Minister says he realizes these measures aren't ideal, but says they are necessary.
Faced with the rise of Omicron variant this coming holiday season, Canadians are frustrated and exhausted. We understand that.
The travel advisory will be in place for 4 weeks for now, but there has been a clear signal that the travel situation could get more complicated very, very quickly. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
In Ontario, it's estimated that half of its COVID cases are Omicron. That's up from 10% last week. Ellen Morrow takes us through how the province is taking action.
At this vaccine clinic, a rush for third doses as Omicron speeds through Ontario.
The Omicron is very scary.
The new virus, right? So you got to protect yourself.
And starting Monday, Ontarians 18 or older, 3 months past their second shot, will now be eligible for their third.
Nothing matters more than getting these third shots into arms.
Premier Doug Ford says Ontario is ramping up against a new enemy, restarting more mass vaccination sites as some already eligible for boosters struggle to find an appointment.
It's going to be a little bit of vaccine Hunger Games over the next few days, but hopefully by Monday everything is much more available.
Ontario is also making rapid test kits more easy to find, handing out 2 million at malls, liquor stores, and on transit in what it calls a holiday testing blitz.
It's about time. I think this is about 3 weeks overdue. So I'm going to take as many as we can get.
If there's lots of them around, then get them out, get them into people's hands.
Scores! The only new restriction from the province doesn't start until Saturday. Venues with a capacity of 1,000 or more will be capped at 50%. The musical Come From Away returned to the Toronto stage just hours after the announcement. Tonight's first full house will also be one of its last, at least for a while.
Now it is getting a little scary again.
I have triple vax and 5 masks. I'm ready.
But some healthcare experts argue more restrictions are needed, cautioning against crowded bars and restaurants this holiday season.
This virus is so incredibly infectious.
We got to pull out all the plugs. And I don't think people understand just how serious the threat is.
The concern now preserving the healthcare system, with so many Ontarians still unvaccinated or not fully immunized, and a surge of cases coming.
That's the CBC's Ellen Morrow reporting from Ontario. Of course, it's not just Canada trying to get a handle on the Omicron variant ahead of the holidays. Countries around the world have been forced to take measures to protect their own populations. Susan Ormiston brings us the global picture.
England's chief medical officer looked dour.
This is a really serious threat at the moment. How big a threat? There are several things we don't know, but all the things that we do know are bad. And the principal one being the speed at which this is moving.
COVID cases are breaking records in England, mostly Delta still, and hospitalizations flat. But Omicron's potential to double every 2 to 3 days is sending Londoners to queue up for booster shots, the most effective protection, scientists say, against the new variant.
Our booster vaccine regimens work against Omicron. At this point, there is no need for a variant-specific booster.
The U.S. is pushing again a 3-point strategy: mask up, get the vaccine, then boost it.
If we didn't have these tools, I would be telling you to really, really be worried.
A South African study this week suggested Omicron produced less severe illness than other variants, but cautioned it's early.
Africa is now officially in the fourth wave of the pandemic, which is partly due to the Omicron variant.
Across Europe, French ICUs are filling up, healthcare workers dreading a surge driven still by Delta. But the European Union warns it can expect Omicron to be the new dominant variant by January. The U.S. hasn't imposed new travel guidelines, but after one full year of vaccines, nearly 1/4 of Americans are not protected.
I had hoped by now each one of you who have helped us get to where we are would have had full access to the White House.
President Biden breaking the news to the Democratic National Committee. No invite to the White House halls this holiday. Omicron, the party crasher. As Congress marked a grim tally, 800,000 Americans now have died of COVID. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
Omicron's impact is also being felt throughout professional sports. Tonight, for example, the National Football League announced 94 players tested positive for COVID. And as Aaron Collins shows us, the virus has also forced the Calgary Flames off the ice.
The Calgary Flames off to a red-hot start this year. But with 16 players and counting out with COVID-19, their season is on ice for now. The team's games postponed until at least next Tuesday.
It's tough and it's draining, and it's, you know, like I said, there's that fatigue factor, but this is just part of life now.
Dozens of NHL players have come down with COVID in recent days. The league's answer to the spike in cases tightening its COVID rules. But more hard questions loom.
How important is it that they press on with games, even at the risk to the health of their players?
NHL players are also set to return to the Olympics in the new year, but some of hockey's biggest stars are thinking twice.
Obviously, I'm still a guy that's wanting to go play in the Olympics, but we also want to make sure it's safe for everybody.
From pro football in the U.S. to pro football in Europe, COVID has leagues around the world scrambling to save their seasons. Amateur athletes are impacted too. The World Junior Hockey Championship is set to start in Alberta over the holidays.
Play in a bubble, so I think it's really cannot be much safer than that, I think. So no big worries.
And fans should be safe in packed arenas too, according to Alberta's premier.
That we have not seen widespread community transmission from those large events that are compliant with the rules.
But not everyone is so sure that full stadiums make sense anymore.
At the present time, if I understand, let's say sports events, arenas, hockey arenas are still at full capacity, that's something I think that needs to be looked at.
Today, Ontario did just that, limiting fans in big sports venues to half of capacity. So with games on the line, COVID once again has athletes and fans alike on the edge of their seats. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
British Columbians are knocking back alcohol at record levels. What's behind the booze surge and what might be done about it? That's next.
British Columbia may be known for its bountiful forests, but 3 out of every 4 Christmas trees people buy in BC are grown in the USA. American trees are a lot cheaper than the homegrown variety, and BC growers claim they're being dumped across the border. So they've asked Revenue Canada to investigate, and they've asked people celebrating Christmas to celebrate with a Canadian touch. The story from Ian Hannamansing.
In British Columbia, a lot of Christmas tree buyers are getting a surprise. Most of the trees sold here this year are from the United States.
I hadn't really thought about it. I just assumed they were all Canadian, but I guess they're not.
Greg McCaig says the reason for selling American trees is simple.
Well, it's just straight business. We can buy our trees cheaper down there, most of them. We get a better quality tree.
Ask a BC tree grower like Dennis Eichanger about this, and he's liable to get a little upset. While the Americans claim they're just more competitive, Icanger claims there's a glut in the U.S., and growers there are dumping trees in Canada for less than the cost of production.
They've put so much money into their trees, and all of a sudden the trees are worth nothing. So they're selling them for whatever they can get for them just to get rid of them.
Revenue Canada is investigating whether American trees are being dumped here illegally, but that investigation will take months to wrap up. So for this Christmas, BC growers are trying to convince people here that regardless of the price, they have a duty to buy a local tree.
But it's hard to tell how successful the campaign is. Grocery stores like this one are selling trees by the tens of thousands, and 3 out of 4 here are American.
You want to take it home?
But the customers don't seem to mind.
Tonight?
Well, personally, it's the price. I mean, if the price is right, you know, it's one less thing to have to put out a lot of money for at Christmas. So it doesn't matter to me where they come from.
At some private lots, signs like these are sprouting up. But Murray Labar admits he doesn't know if it's much help.
To what degree, I'm not really sure. But some people have voiced an opinion that they did want a BC tree. So that's nice to know.
The business is still slow.
It's still slow, yeah.
Most sellers say next week is critical in the Christmas tree business. That's when the battle here between low prices and buying local will be won or lost. Ian Hannamansing, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The Coquihalla Highway is set to reopen far ahead of schedule on December 20th. It will be for commercial vehicles only, along with intercity buses. It's still not clear when the major route connecting the Lower Mainland and the interior will be open to all traffic, but Highway 3 will welcome non-essential traffic 24 hours after the Coke's reopening. And the annual number of homes sold in BC hit a new high in 2021, even with 1 month of data still to come. The yearly sales total through to the end of November was almost 118,000 units, surpassing the previous record of about 112,000 units sold in 2016. Records have been set in nearly every market of the province. Turns out there's been a spike in alcohol consumption during the pandemic. British Columbians drank more during the first year of COVID than in the past 20 years. But with bars and clubs closed for so long during this time, this new data from UVic also brings to light how many people have been drinking privately. Let's bring in researcher Tim Namey. He's behind these numbers. Now, Tim, consumption went up to 9.32 liters of pure alcohol per capita. Can you give us a sense of how much that actually is? How much is the average person drinking in BC?
Sure. Well, so these data are not from a survey. They're from actually the sales and tax receipts of alcohol that's sold. We don't know who's consuming it with this method. So typically what's done is that that consumption is divided equally among all people in the population aged 15 and older. So when you do that, it comes to about the equivalent of 1.5 standard drinks per person. But that, remember, is including a lot of people that are younger that don't drink much, that are older that don't drink much, and the many people that don't drink at all. So among people who are actually consuming alcohol, it's quite a bit higher than that.
So when you say 1.5 drinks per person, are you talking 1.5 drinks a day?
Yeah, great. Yes, 1.5 drinks per day. And just so people know, a drink in Canada is defined as about what's in a can of beer, or 5 ounces, like a glass of wine, or a shot of whiskey or other distilled spirit.
Does this research enable you to know more about why people have been drinking more during COVID?
This research does not really help us understand why. It helps in the best way, in a very kind of relatively gold standard way. It confirms what a lot of the surveys have been suggesting, and it confirms that consumption has gone up. And I would hasten to add that COVID clearly has contributed to that, but this is on top of rising consumption in BC that actually started sort of in 2013 and 2014, and we've seen about an 8 or 10% increase in average consumption over that longer period, and an additional kind of a little spike, or a small to medium-sized spike on top of that during the COVID epidemic.
Well, I know the government's policies have changed a little bit as well. So can you talk about that? What policy changes have contributed to this?
Right. So part and parcel of COVID, affecting alcohol consumption has in fact been related to policy changes, as you suggest. And in British Columbia, at no time in the past 20 years that we've been monitoring consumption have British Columbians had access to alcohol from so many locations with so many methods of delivery or pickup at so many hours of the day. And so as much as we'd like to kind of ascribe this to COVID, quote unquote, part and parcel of COVID has been the government's policy responses, which have probably contributed to the increase. What I would also mention is what we're going to be seeing in the future is concerning, because the restrictions around the sale of alcohol in bars and restaurants have been lifted, but the other liberalizations around home delivery, around pickup, takeaway, et cetera, those policies have continued and seem likely to continue. So I'm actually more concerned about next year than this past year, if that makes sense.
Interesting, for sure. Dr. Tim Namey is with the University of Victoria. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, if you've noticed your bills for just about everything are getting bigger, you're not seeing things. So what's behind the rapid rise in inflation and what might be done about it? That's coming up. At 6:40, you're looking at a live look at the Inner Harbor in Victoria tonight. A bit warmer in the coming days. Johanna has the full mixed forecast next.
In the year 2050, how will BC look? From agriculture to cities, how will climate change change life? Don't miss 2050 Degrees of Change, a CBC Vancouver original podcast, now available.
Okay, take a look at this. A Fort Nelson woman decorated her lawn with a light-up Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but some neighbors weren't too impressed. No, the local Bucks didn't want to let poor Rudolph play in any reindeer games. The decoration is basically an archery target with a bulb attached to the nose, but every year, real deer attack the Rudolph decoration on display on Arlene Shemlick's front lawn. Good thing it's just a decoration, or Santa would be looking for someone else to guide his sleigh next week, that's for sure.
Ooh.
You gotta wonder, that must be happening quite a bit all over the province.
Yeah, that did make me think. You're right. If one deer has a problem with Rudolph, well, they're all battling out to go down. No, they'll go down in history.
Yeah.
I had to sing it to know. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm going to switch focus dramatically here, but also speaking of one for the history books, I've got to take you to some footage out of Iowa from just hours ago. The U.S. Midwest dealing with a huge outbreak of severe weather events tonight. This is one of several tornado touchdowns. We have had the most tornado reports just tonight in December than we've ever seen. And for places that have never had a December tornado like Minnesota and South Dakota. I want to take you to the culprit on the satellite and radar. It is this huge swirling low centered over Iowa. The cold front extending basically from the Great Lakes all the way to Colorado. We've got everything from snow squalls, dust storms, hurricane force winds along that line, and then summer temperatures. And it's really the collision of these two air masses that is leading to quite an impressive cold front tonight. A variety of warnings in place, including tornado warnings, tracking those right now up towards Iowa, and then also watching for this line to move into southern Ontario for tomorrow morning. Not quite as severe, but big winds all around. It has been an exceptional December for storms in the U.S. Very rare. Low pressure system of a different variety spinning off our coast, and just watching for a few showers tomorrow morning. This low is going to sink south. We'll look for a quick shot of mountain snow, pausing you at Thursday 6 a.m. And you can see that purple tracking across the province, a couple centimeters. It is dragging that Arctic air down into Fort St. John, and just off the coast, you can see that next low pressure system. That will be our story for Friday into Saturday. Very cold but clear air in place for Prince George, Williams Lake, even down to Kelowna. You'll see that 2 centimeters in the morning, clearing out in the afternoon. Prince Rupert, highs to -1, wind chills around -9. It's a lovely, bright winter's day across most of the province after you get through that first shot of snow. Speaking of snow, looking at a very interesting temperature trend ahead for Metro Vancouver. Seasonals for this time of the year based on our 30-year average, around 6 for afternoon highs. So we'll hit that the next couple of days generally. Looking for that afternoon sunshine on Thursday. Friday showers will ramp up to steadier rain Friday overnight into Saturday. This one looking to bring some good mountain snow, possibly some big winds. I'll keep my eye on that. We may see some watches in the mornings as we head into Saturday. All-day washout event, though. And then Sunday, pretty steady showers. It's going to be a soggy weekend. And then we get into a very cool and very clear air mass starting Monday. And I still see that long-range snow in the forecast. I'll keep you posted.
That long-range snow, so maybe Christmas?
It's looking like bang on around Christmas.
Wow.
I don't want to hang our hats on it yet, but I'm kind of getting excited.
Okay. I will try to keep my excitement at bay, but I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Joe.
Me too. You're welcome.
And back to what is happening in the U.S. President Joe Biden was in Kentucky for a first-hand look at the devastation from the deadly tornadoes that hit last week. Those killed 74 people. Now, he promised federal help would be there as long as it's needed.
There may be things available that will be helpful 6 weeks, 6 months from now that you're unaware of. And so I've instructed my team to make you all aware of everything that is available from a federal level. And some of it has to do outside of FEMA.
The president consoled survivors that he made his way around piles of debris from trees, homes, and furniture in hard-hit Mayfield, just one of dozens of communities ravaged by the storms. More than 30 tornadoes tore through Kentucky and 7 other states. Thousands of people lost their homes. Well, the inflation rate held steady in Canada last month, but if it feels like the price of just about everything has gone up, you're right. The numbers from Stats Canada show the cost of food, furniture, and gas have increased the most in recent months. And for the second month in a row, inflation is at an 18-year high. Jacqueline Hansen takes a look at what's fueling it.
At this tire service center, inflation is everywhere.
These are valve stems.
How much have these gone up in price?
So these gone up about 15 to 25 cents each.
The cost of everything from wheel weights to lube, gloves, and even equipment is up.
We've seen price increases almost bi-monthly.
The owner also says a third of his staff left during the pandemic.
Where we're struggling is finding what I've kind of dubbed as a junior technician, somebody that's just learning the industry.
So he's paying his senior staff to do it all. Add that all up, and he's forced to jack up the cost of services by 10 to 15%.
It's very unfortunate that the consumer is going to end up paying the additional costs.
The pandemic initially slowed down business everywhere. Plants had to take COVID precautions and deal with outbreaks. Consumers cut back spending. And so did some businesses. This Canadian ski distributor says orders from retailers cratered.
No one knew what was going to happen.
So they weren't prepared for what came next. Canadians took their savings and went shopping. Production across industries has struggled to meet the demand. Shipping routes have been maxed out.
Just leaving Europe right now.
A much-needed container full of skis, poles, boots, and bindings is already a month late.
That's just the way shipping's been. Everything just backlogged. I'm impressed, actually, that it's only a month delayed.
Shipping companies have charged record prices, and that is getting passed on to consumers. But for inflation in Canada to continue well above 4%, prices will have to keep climbing month after month. This economist says raising interest rates should slow demand.
What it can do is reduce our overall spending power for spending more on interest payments.
But it won't solve the supply chain crunch.
To get more goods coming to the market on time is not something that interest rate hikes can do. Vaccines will be the cure for that part of inflation.
Do you think that this will be the last big price increase that you see?
Well, I'm hopeful this will be the last one, although it is the biggest one so far.
Whether these pandemic premiums stay in place is a whole other question. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, they might be pretty, but poinsettias are considered quite dangerous. So how concerned should you be? Well, especially if you have small kids or pets around you, we're going to tell you that answer next.
Merry Christmas, and we'll see you at Christmas time. Don't forget, milk, cookies, and bannock I want, okay? This will be a first that Santa Claus is wearing orange. And I explained to everybody that why I'm wearing orange to these young children. I say, because you all matter. All children matter, no matter what race they're from. Every child matters. Oh, race rules, give us a fist punch here.
A lot of our team have really been feeling the effects of the residential school system this year, and so when we were discussing what to do for Christmas, there, was kind of heavy hearts, and so these two sort of worlds merged together. Of, well, let's go visit the kids. Let's, bring them some cheer, and then we thought we'll make it orange.
It was good to see him back down here. Orange shirt means everybody child matters.
Presents for you guys. Hundreds of kids. We got. I think we've got 2,700 presents left to give out. We give out almost 1,000 already, so, there's much more to go after that. Cookies and an extra large bannock for me and the reindeer. Can you do that for me? We're flying out tomorrow, and boy, I tell you, I'm looking forward to meeting much more kids up north that I've never seen before. It's orange because you all matter. You all matter to Santa, to your moms and your papas, your moms and your sisters. Every child matters. That's what this is for. The message has to be given, every child matters. Not just at Christmas time, all the time. Oh boy, you guys are talking my ears off. Okay,
We've started kind of the tradition, especially since COVID hit, for our kindergarten class to come and visit and put on a bit of a concert for the residents here. It's great. The kids get to practice their songs and we get to go out and visit the community.
My history has been being a daycare teacher myself, so hearing children is especially significant for me. It's different than adult singing for me. Children, they really get to my heart.
And it's a reminder how we really need to do all we can to ease the social isolation and loneliness of people living in long-term care. And also, we need to make sure that there's, mixing of different generations. I think that will really enhance their quality of life.
It's made me happier talking about it now. It's making me happier and happier.
Here's proof that good things come in small packages, especially during the holidays. Take a look at this lovable little critter, a baby Java mouse deer born at the Warsaw Zoo about 2 weeks ago. The staff was overjoyed to hear the pitter-patter of extremely tiny hooves. Now, it measures about 10 centimeters in height, that's 4 inches, and the sex is not yet known. Mouse deer are among the smallest hooved mammals on the planet, and once they reach adulthood, they only weigh between 1 and 2 kilograms, or about 3 to 4.5 pounds. What a cutie. Okay, along with Christmas trees and bright light displays, nothing says the holidays like a poinsettia. Of course, their bright red star-shaped flowers are in full bloom this time of year, and tens of millions are sold worldwide. But what is the best way to care for it, and is it poisonous? CBC News turned to an expert to answer those questions.
Our most common question, will poinsettias kill me or my child or my pet? And the answer is no, they will not. That's a myth that goes back over 100 years ago. 1919, a little girl in the States died, and they attributed it to poinsettia leaves. The reason for all the fear is this. It's this milky white sap. Okay, it has latex in it. All euphorbia, that's the family, have this kind of sap. It's a huge family. In some species, abrasive to the skin. In some species, it is very dangerous. Poinsettias are not. If you or your toddler or your pet eat a handful of leaves, they'll probably get nauseous and throw up. That's normal. But it would literally take a massive amount to make them sick. So, myth busted. What is dangerous, however? Holly berries, mistletoe berries. The berries are extremely dangerous on those plants. So if you have kids or pets, consider artificials if you're looking for those things in your decor. The most common problem people have with poinsettias is by watering them too much, otherwise known as loving them too much. They're from an arid region of Mexico, so you want to keep them on definitely on the dry side in between watering. You don't have to fertilize them, that's all been done already. And you want to keep them away from cold drafts, away from the front door drafts, away from the heat register drafts, because that heat's going to go up and just desiccate the leaves. When you're choosing a poinsettia, pro tip, look in the middle, and you want those buds to be closed and preferably not very many open, and definitely not black. And it'll keep its color all through December, and you can just enjoy it right through Christmas.
And here's some holiday cheer to end on. What's the jolliest street on the Lower Mainland? The brightest block around? That's the question our city reporter Justin McElroy and the team at the CBC's Early Edition are trying to figure out. Here's one of the contenders, Trinity Street in East Vancouver. Every year, houses on the street are kitted up with dazzling displays of Christmas lights, making it one of Vancouver's star attractions during the holidays. Now, the early edition is profiling the entrants throughout the week. Vancouver, Surrey, Ladner, and Langley are all represented, and we'll update you on the winner later this week. Awesome stuff. I'm loving all of these light displays. Just a couple weeks left, although some people probably keep their lights on until January, so maybe you have half a month left, I guess, to check it all out. That's all for CBC Vancouver News at 6 tonight. Dan is back here at 11 with more local news, and I'll see you tomorrow.